Hello everyone, this is Angel Esquivel here. Welcome back to another movie review, and today we're going to be reviewing Masters of the Universe, directed by Travis Knight and starring Nicholas Galitzine. I literally had to learn how to pronounce that last name. Who he stars the man himself, He-Man. So, without further ado, let's talk about the most powerful man in the universe. For those who are not aware of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, it's an 80s show that was from the 80s. Obviously, people who are born in like around 2000 and to like now, it's like people are not going to know this, but obviously I know just a little bit because I watched this during like before cable and before like streaming. This was just regular TV, watching it on like late night cartoons. So, and that's when I got introduced to He-Man, and I know because my mom and my dad sort of know this shows because they were born around that time. So, yeah. But in this story, it talks about, about Prince Adam when he was a kid, and then Skeletor takes over, entire Eternia, and so her mom sends him away to Earth because obviously, in order to make things more grounded, it has to be set on Earth. So then years later, he founds the Sword of Power. They return it to Eternia. He finds that Eternia is already like destroyed, or mainly the city. So now he has to use the sword to gain its power to become He-Man, the most powerful man of the universe. Yeah, so this movie, it does justice for like the original cartoons. Like they got like the actors correct in this movie. Like even though they did some certain race swaps, but I'm like, to me that didn't really care at all. I think they did a really good job. Like, starting for Nicholas as He-Man, or Prince Adam, does a good job. The other actress as Teela does amazing. Idris Elba as Man-in-Arms. Because me as I was never really like a big fan of just like race swapping certain characters, because back then I never really liked that. But with Idris Elba, since he's one of my favorite actors out there, and seeing him, it was like, wow, he did a really good job. It's almost like watching Bloodsport, which he also plays in Suicide Squad, which is like the same character. It's almost like they're calling it the same, like they use guns and stuff, but in a Man-in-Arms, he's more like a happier, good version of that character. They also got Fisto, Ram Man, and Cringer, the cowardly cat. And Skeletor. Yeah, they got Skeletor right in this movie. Like, I know, even though he's played by Jared Leto, but to give credit where credit's due, you gotta admit, Jared Leto has range as an actor. I liked how they kept him, like serious, but then again, goofy at times, just like in the original cartoon, because in the cartoons, it was never meant to take, like, seriously. Yeah, they have, like, certain messages and themes around the show, but it was just a reminder. It's like, this is for kids. The choreography in the movie is also fantastic. I was surprised like how they got the choreography right. Like there's moments whenever they're punching like each other in the scenes. Like, dude, watching it both on IMAX. I actually watched this twice on IMAX and Dolby to see the difference. But really, there really is no difference other than the intros. But yeah, you could just feel like the bass of them like punching and hitting each other around. I also found it surprising how violent certain scenes were, because I think even the beginning part when Man-in-Arms was fighting Trapjaw, who was also one of the classic villains in the show, there are scenes where like when he like punches or stabs Trapjaw, he was like bleeding out of his mouth. I was like, whoa. And then He-Man, also using his Sword of Power, stabs like many other characters, and I was like, whoa. I like, they also, it kind of gets you off, like it gets you surprised to think like, oh, like this is supposed to be a kids movie, but in fact it's not a kids movie because it's PG-13, and it's like it almost grew up with like the older audience, people that were born back in the 70s or 80s, because they know more about this stuff. I mean, me, I know I sort of know this because my parents know this, but I don't know much. The humor, I also found it surprising. There's times where it's like, it kind of feels like it drags, but then there's humor that it really like also lands. I also like how they kind of like poke fun of like their character designs or their names, because it's mainly like we find out like towards in the movie, it's Prince Adam, aka He-Man, is the one that names these characters. Like, that's not my name. But I think in the comedy, it lies way better with Skeletor because in the cartoon, he was always like the way he talks and also like his one-liner jokes, which I don't remember what he says, but in the movie, it shows that how campy and goofy he is. I think there's like moments where whenever he's like laughing out loud, and then every character is just like silent. He's like, They found a really good director for this movie. Travis Knight, who I found out is the director of this movie. I also did my research that he was the one that directed Bumblebee, the Bumblebee movie, and what was Kubo? Yeah, that stop motion stuff. Yeah, I also found out he directed those movies, which those movies actually were good in my opinion. I actually really like those movies. And it's funny because with Bumblebee, it kind of seemed a little more like childish, but compared to this one, like I actually liked how he made this movie, and I'm really hoping to see a sequel, specifically for him to direct it. If there's any disappointments I have with this movie, it's I feel like the jokes, like some don't land, like they kind of drag on. This movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes, if I remember. It almost feels like a little too long. I think, if you're gonna introduce this for like kids, like I don't think they're not gonna really like last this long to like watch it, because I think it's like best if you could have just shortened it down. There are some like dialogue that sort of extends too long, and at times there's moments where like the CGI looks like a little noticeable. It's not too bad, but it's kind of like noticeable to the point like, yeah, it looks a little cheap. But then again, there's moments where it looks really good, like especially with Skeletor. I also have my other issues, like my disappointments, but it'll be considered spoiler, and I really don't want to like do any like spoiler reviews at this point. What I do like what this movie does is that it reveals like Prince Adams becomes He-Man like in like almost like before the middle of the movie. Because every time when they do when they try to adapt to something, the character doesn't become that character until like the very end, which I don't really like when they do that with adaptations. But with He-Man, they did it better when they decided to no, towards the middle of the movie, he's already He-Man, which is perfect. Great director, great acting performances from all the actors, the special effects, really cool. The set designs are also amazing. I love the soundtrack. The humor funny at times. So yeah, and even though I have my issues, but I do recommend you to go see this movie. And it kind of sucks to realize that, because I also saw this somewhere on a YouTube that this movie is sort of flopping because it's not really making much money. And it's not because of Jared Leto, who happens to be the franchise killer. It's not because of that. It's because we basically have other movies that are making more money, like Michael, Obsession, Backrooms, that one cartoon movie on YouTube that people are watching and stuff. And He-Man, obviously, that is an older IP. Kids nowadays are not really they don't really know much about He-Man nowadays, because obviously this is 80s, and 2, they just watched a bunch of AI shit. That's why they don't know about your cartoons. But for those out there watching, I highly recommend you watch He-Man, so that we can at least get a sequel, because I would really like to see a sequel out of this. So, for my final verdict for this video, or movie, I give it an 8 out of 10. A really solid, good popcorn action flick movie. So, in conclusion, real strength does not come from your muscles. It comes from your heart. The heart. The heart. Well, that's going to be today's movie review, so make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification icon up there. Make sure to follow me on my Instagram page called Thunderstruck1810. This is Angel Esquivel here, and as always,
by the power of Grayskull.